Hello, everybody. Welcome to Top Voices 2026 already. Can we believe it? And myself and Bruno want to extend a huge thank you to the people that participated in the last year, in the last year and a half. I can't actually remember how long we're doing this. Bruno, you maybe have a sharper
Nearly
brain.
2 years.
Nearly 2 years we're doing this. So we want very, very thankful for people that give their time, and they give their time freely and to help individuals and help other organisations by sharing experiences, and that's something that's very valuable in the world in general. So we're very fortunate to have Mr. Amer Qobti with us, and Amer has a very, very interesting profile, and I'm only going to right now list a few of the things, but hopefully you'll share your experiences in more detail through the conversation. But Amer is the Arabic language lead with an organisation called Bold. Additionally, he is a video game localization specialist. And I think the thing that's probably taking up a lot of your time, I would suggest, is you're also a PhD candidate. So perhaps you'll share a little more about that with us further in. And then in addition to that, we have the lovely Bruno, Mr. Bruno Herrmann, who Bruno's extremely well known in this whole space. And Bruno is a global consultant. So shall we get started? Amer, if you're happy to start and give us a quick journey through your professional life or whatever you're happy to share or you're able to share, and to bring you up to where you are today. We start with that.
Definitely. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. I'm really happy to be here, and I do wish I could be with you in person today. There's always a different energy when you're in the same room, but I'm genuinely glad we can still do this anyway, and hopefully we will get a chance to meet properly another time.
Yes.
So sure, my background is pretty personal, and it explains why I ended up specializing in localization. I grew up in a small, beautiful town in the southern part of Saudi Arabia, and when you grow up there, especially at the time, Arabic is basically the world around you. It was the only language that I was really exposed to day to day, and I was very lucky in a very specific way that I was part of one of the first cohorts to have English introduced in the primary school.
Okay.
It starts at the 6th grade, and at the timing actually mattered a lot for me because it happened when I was spending a lot of time playing video games. And those two things actually, like the English language and showing up in school and gaming being part of my life, kind of created an early fascination with technology and language. I didn't know the word localization, of course, back then. I just felt the experience. Sometimes you're fully included, sometimes you're not, and that's actually was the experience that I got. And you can sense when something wasn't made with you in mind. I remember how often I had to bridge the gap myself, and that's really where my interest started, even before I could name it.
Yeah. Okay. So up to today, are you happy to share a little about your PhD? What's the focus of that?
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Tell us a bit about that.
So after I actually did my BA in English language with a focus on linguistics and translation, and that's the first time I started learning the language and seeing language. Not just something that we speak or use day to day, but as a system.
Yeah.
And translation as a discipline with choices, trade-offs, and real consequences. And right after graduation, I started working in the defense sector. And honestly, that experience was very special to me. It shaped the way I think about translation and responsibility. And it taught me early on that there is no one-size-fits-all approach. And the right way to translate always depends on the context, the
Yeah.
risk, the purpose, and I'm sure we will talk about that later. But because it really influenced the way I approach localization today. And after that, I worked for 2 years, and then I received a scholarship through my university to pursue higher education. I came to the US in 2018, and I completed my master's degree in translation studies with a focus on localization.
Okay.
And now I'm in my final year of my PhD program at Kent State University, still in translation studies. So, in a way, it started with the personal kind of experience
Yeah.
of language access, and I built the academic foundation that I got to the PhD. I'm doing my dissertation on the emergence of video game localization specialists, and more specifically on the pathways. How do people specialize in niche areas within the language industry?
And have you noticed, since you've started your PhD up to now, have you noticed changes in the commercial field around that, considering the massive input of AI in such a short space of time? Have you noticed much of a difference even around with your studies?
Yes. Yeah. And honestly, back in 2018, when I joined the master's program, there was this huge hype around neural machine translation, and everyone was freaking out, and this is the end. And all of the conferences at that time were focusing on the machine translation, and it was just the new big thing at that time. And I remember there was a paper published by Microsoft on the machine human parity, where they actually said that they reached a level of human parity in English Chinese language that is up to almost 90% accuracy. And it was scary at the time, like being so excited to learn about translation and getting my master's degree. And you look at the world, and everything is working against you. But
Well,
since that time, not only machine translation that actually got really better, everything like cloud services, the infrastructures, workflows. We have more and more people talking about translation and localization, and it will keep going. And more specifically, when we talk about AI, I think personally, I'm on what you would call the conservative but realistic side.
okay.
I didn't buy the hype that full automation is around the corner, and I still don't think rejecting AI completely is realistic.
Yeah.
Back in early 2023, after the ChatGPT took off, I did a webinar where I talked about the Gartner hype cycle, and I still think it's the best mental model. We get a big spike of excitement, and then disappointment, and eventually we land somewhere practical.
Yeah.
Translation as an industry tends to panic. Either we are vanished or humans are obsolete.
Yeah.
And both are usually emotional, not operational. And I've lived both extremes. I've worked in high stake environments where computers aren't even connected to the internet, and the tolerance for risk is basically zero.
Okay.
And I've also worked on the other end, where part of my job is validating AI output.
Yeah.
And what taught me is AI is amazing in the right place, speed and all of that. But there are areas where you can, or you just can't compromise. You have sensitive content, you have
Yeah.
legal safety, you have a lot of implications.
Yeah.
So I think it's better to see it as that the future isn't, or at the moment it's not humans or machines or whatever the discourse is, but it's humans deciding where machines are allowed to help.
Yeah.
I think that's the better conversation, or the best way we could take this conversation to.
We actually were having a version of this conversation this morning, and with another contributor, completely different world to yours, but still involved in language and language management and AI and tech and all that stuff. But the question that was asked of me, funny enough, because I'm obviously in the staffing, predominantly in the staffing world, recruiting world, and was, so are you guys able to get enough people to satisfy the huge demand for the changed world? And I said, what has fascinated me is the huge demand for the changed world hasn't happened yet. So now it is happening, but little by little. So I was actually just showing Bruno, one of our clients, the list of open roles that they have at the moment, and it's about 15% of them are new world, or 20% max new world, and the balance is standard world. So I think it was funny when the whole sort of panic started, and for me as the owner of a small recruiting business, it felt like the panic was probably about 24 months ago. Now, it possibly was sooner or later for all different types of businesses, but that's when I sort of sensed the shift in what was being required, or what I thought was going to be required. And I'm still waiting for the speedy change, that still hasn't happened. So now it is happening, but it's happening much more slowly than I think. So I sat with my team and, oh my God, right, we're going to have to identify all these new people. Where are they? Where are they studying at the moment? Where are they? And what age are they? How much experience do they have? Are we going to be able to satisfy the needs of the clients? And I'm still waiting.
So. Absolutely. No, and just to circle back on what you said, Amer, and also considering the roles that you have. I mean, we just talked about your roles in addition to your PhD. So PhD is probably where you learn a lot about the concepts and the standards. And your other roles are when you put that into practice, the reality. So not just the theory, but the practice, which is... which have to be going hand in hand in a way. But something that is very interesting, and I second what Paula just said, is that I think one of the mistakes, which is probably human most of all, is that with AI and generative AI specifically, there were a number of people when ChatGPT was launched that a number of people believed that it was the beginning of a revolution and not an evolution. There is a difference. The revolution is everything speedy and immediate, etc. The evolution is slower. It is happening step by step, phase by phase. And this is something that I see quite regularly in the language, not just the language industry, but the language community. So the community of people managing languages. And of course, in this community now, you have a number of people who are very AI driven. And the best example is what is, a LLM? It is a large language model. So you have the L standing for language. So, it's very interesting to hear your perspective. It might be your prediction if you want. I know it's difficult to make predictions, but okay, we can try today. Your perspective on this balance between automation driven by AI, and you're right. You mentioned NMT was the big driver before. Everything was supposed to be automated with machine translation, but we saw the reality was different. And so the balance between automation and human augmentation. So what humans can still do, not can, but have to do. So what is your perspective about this balance? Specifically, considering your profile, having on one side the PhD for all the concept and the standards, and on the other side, all the roles that you have in the language management where you put those standards into practice. So there has to be a balance, right?
Sure. I'll first mention something very interesting and a perspective that actually stayed with me. So during my PhD, I actually interviewed a lot of game localization specialists. And one of the interviewees mentioned something that is actually a great metaphor about the language industry and about translation in specific. And she mentioned that translation is like the canary in the coal mine. And it's the first to feel the burnt of the any technological disruption and anything that is new in the industry. Translation is the first thing that gets actually affected, and it actually true. Same thing that we just mentioned about the machine translation and how it's always disrupting our industry. But going back to your question, Bruno. So when people talk about scaling or moving fast, or AI doing more of the work, I always pause because, as I mentioned, I've worked in an environment where the computers aren't even connected to the internet. And I'm not being dramatic here. It's actually the reality of the setting. So the assumption we casually make that in the tech workflows and everything, like cloud tools and shared platforms, the automation and the quick iteration, even basic connectivity simply aren't available. So access is restricted. The process itself is strict, and everything is designed around security and risk. So that's part of the balance. And honestly, this is one thing that the industry isn't one single environment. And there are many sectors that are not easy to access, and they operate under completely different constraints. So when someone makes a blanket statement like this is the future of translation, or everything will be automated, I immediately think maybe in some context that's true. But there are entire domains where that's not realistic, not permitted, not even desirable. Speed and automation is not always the main concern of many clients in many domains. And if we look at it from a different perspective, also the quality in a way that this kind of work, quality isn't just a vague concept. We talk about responsibility. So since the tolerance of errors is very low, and a small mistake isn't a minor issue or something that in other different workflows that we will fix it later, it can have real consequences.
That's right.
So going back to the balance, you in this situation you work to or you learn to work differently. You slow down, you verify, you treat terminology and consistency as non-negotiable, and you develop a mindset where accuracy come first before speed, before automation, before anything. So that's the kind of balance that can happen in assessing the risk. So if we look at it, we have areas of compromise that you can actually work with automation and an AI. There are areas where you can't compromise. Like when it's legal or compliance, health, or political, of course, with everything going on now. And with that, also add an extra complexity with Arabic. So even if you get the textual assets correct, you still have the formality, you still have the right to left, you still have the user experience. So there are areas where good enough can damage trust fast.
No, exactly. And I'm really glad you mentioned how you see the balance, because also in my own experience, the balance is driven by the context. It has to be driven by which context are you considering. You're right. You mentioned, of course, compliance, where you have to do things, even if you don't like it, but you have to do it because it's based on compliance requirements. So that's the case in the life science industry or in the legal industry. So you cannot do everything that you would like to do. So you have to, deliver what needs to be delivered. And I think you mentioned experience, but I think that is really the sort of springboard to value and effectiveness. Because if the experience you mentioned, of course, the example of Arabic, which goes beyond words. If the whole experience, so not just the words, but everything that is around the words, the context, the audience, the user experience,
the nuances.
The nuances, everything that is around those words have to be combined to become the experience. And this is only when the real value comes out. You cannot say that, for instance, yes, you have I'm not an expert in gaming, but I assume it's the same like in other industries. You cannot say, oh, yes, I have a game in Arabic, available in Arabic. It's going to be effective, it's going to be valuable. No, it's only when it gets to the client, when it gets to the user, that you can see if the value is really there. Because it will depend on how the user will react. If the user is saying, oh, yes, I understand the game, but I don't like it because it's not part of my experience, the fact that it's going to be in Arabic, it's not going to cut it. So it is the context that is driving the balance also between automation and augmentation. But what resonates a lot with me, and probably more than with me, not just me, hopefully, is the fact that, as you said, it has to be context-driven. And that's where, of course, the value, I use the word value because that's what matters at the end of the day. The value needs to be more than just one thing. The value cannot just be that it's translated or that it's localized. It has to be compliant. It has to be fast. In some industries, speed is. But sometimes when I read posts, in the past day I read some posts from people making predictions for 2026, which I don't do. So I don't make predictions. It's too dangerous. But I see some people, not everyone, they say that speed is the ultimate standard, is the ultimate goal. And I tend not to agree with that, because speed is important, but speed alone is not going to be enough in a number of industries. So you have to combine speed sometimes with other criteria like compliance, like effectiveness, etc. So you cannot just say speed, it's all about speed, speed, speed. Yeah, sometimes speed has to be a bit lowered, if I can use that term. But then, of course, you have to take into account to get the balance right between speed and other criteria. So I'm glad you mentioned, because I read, in the past week, I read at least 5 or 6 posts from people from the language industry saying that speed is going to be the ultimate goal for this year. I tend to disagree, because it cannot be the only goal. It has to be balanced.
Surely there's going to be a different combination of performance indicators case by case. Surely that's a general business methodology. It just doesn't work if you apply the same combination of indicators to every single business. That'd be, your business just wouldn't survive, or let alone thrive, if you did that.
Yes, actually, the obsession with speed is one of the biggest traps in multilingual content, and we've talked about this off the record. But I understand why it happens. And as you mentioned, Paula, that companies move fast, release cycles are tight, and multilingual content is often treated like the thing that has to catch up to English. So the pressure becomes, how quickly can we push this through translation and on paper it looks efficient, more words, more languages, faster turnaround. But the problem is speed is a metric. Yeah. It's not a strategy.
No.
So if you optimize only speed, you usually end up paying for it somewhere else. You pay in rework, you pay in inconsistency, you pay in support tickets, and there's a lot of and the biggest thing is trust. You pay a lot in trust, because as Bruno mentioned, that users can feel when a product is rushed in their language, and once trust drops, it's really hard to win back. There is and actually, and I just don't want to name names, but there is a one of the biggest streaming companies that localized their product into Arabic, and it was rushed, and you can tell just by browsing the app or their website. It wasn't done with very careful localization, and it was rushed. So the part that actually frustrates me is that obsession often comes from treating multilingual content as a post-production task. Like, okay, English is done, now translate. If you design the process that way, of course, you'll always be behind, and you'll always be rushing. And the real fix isn't to translate fast. The fix is move upstream. Plan earlier, build language assets, have terminology decisions made before lunch, and make sure the dev and design are not creating strings that are impossible to localize. And when you do all of that, you actually ship faster, because you're not firefighting at the end.
I know.
And there is also human side to it. When teams chase speed consistently, quality becomes a personal fight instead of a system. And translators and reviewers, and I've experienced this firsthand, get forced into this mode where they're expected to be both fast and perfect, and we all know that that's almost impossible. You can't have both worlds. You have to decide. You either go with being fast and quality will suffer, or get a high quality in a slower pace.
I know, they're expected to pull a rabbit out of a hat at the same time.
That's a great point, because that's another balance. The first balance that I have in mind, it's between automation and augmentation, and the second balance is between speed and quality. And this balance is not new; it's a very old balance. Everybody, as you said, everybody would like to get both, but often you have to make a choice. You cannot
and you have to pay.
And you have to pay for it. Exactly.
Exactly it.
But you mentioned another point, which is, I think, critical this year more than last year. You mentioned multilingual content and not translation localization, because sometimes people in the language industry, they keep focusing on translation localization and not on multilingual content, which goes from creation to delivery. And of course, translation localization are tasks in between those two points, those two endpoints. So I'm just curious to have your view on a challenge. It's a human challenge. It's not a technology challenge. The challenge of recruiting, or selecting, I should say, the people who are going to be dealing with multilingual content rather than just translation localization. What I mean is that today, specifically with AI, but I think even without AI, people managing multilingual content should be more than just translators. They can be terminologists, they can be project managers. Language professionals are not limited to translation localization. So what is your view on the ideal profile of the language professionals in 2026?
Well, there is of course the core competencies are desirable, but recruiting multilingual people is a huge topic. And I'll be honest, a lot of companies approach it in a way that looks logical on paper, but fails in practice. The first thing I always say is, being multilingual is not the same as being able to produce professional multilingual content.
That's right.
And a bilingual person might be great in conversation, but localization work is a different skill set. Writing ability, register control, terminology, all of that, and the patience to work within product constraints. All of that are important. So if a company hires multilingual people, expecting that alone to solve localization, they usually end up in disappointment. And what works better is being clear about what you are actually recruiting for. Because there are at least 3 different needs to that get mixed together, like multilingual customer-facing roles, multilingual content roles, and multilingual market roles. And each one of these has different skill sets and also criteria. And once you know which one you need, the hiring process becomes much cleaner. And the second thing is, don't recruit only for language. And as you said, Bruno, like recruit for domain and language. And this is where the industry is going, I think. Like you get Arabic and games, or Arabic and software as a service, or Arabic as and HR. This is the when someone understands both the domain and the language, they actually make better decisions.
Yeah.
And that's what saves time and prevents mistakes later. And if you want a real pipeline, you can't just really rely on finding unicorns. You need a development path. And I've seen this work when company invest in strong onboarding, and they have mentorship, and they do so that the people are aligned quickly. And you need to invest in clear QA feedback loops. Unfortunately, feedback is one of the things that is rarely provided in our industry, and we always get this like no news is good news. But then again, there is a huge need for a sense of progression. You get a junior, a mid, and senior tracks. These are the things that kind of missed in our industry, and going forward, this is the right way of doing it. Because multilingual talent is often lost, not because people can't do the work, it's just because the environment is chaotic.
The direction is not strong.
Yes. No standards, and there's a lot of constraints, unclear expectations. And that's how you burn out good people. You've read recently, there's a lot of people planning to leave the industry. And honestly, I'll just connect it back to something we talked about earlier, something that or talked about off record, the cultural awareness.
Yes, please. Interested in that.
Yes, and we can talk more about it if you would like.
Yes, please. Actually, I got sidetracked because I'm hugely interested, because when we did speak in the past, you were talking to us. It was hugely interesting, and I think it would be of interest to our audience about the business world in Saudi. I mean, do you travel there much yourself, and what is the business world like there, and how do you find it different, the same, to doing business in the US? Are you happy to share that with us?
Sure.
Yes,
sure.
We're very keen to hear about that, because you have exposure and information that most of us don't get access to, but it's hugely valuable information and hugely interesting.
You have to really zoom out to Vision 2030.
Yeah.
And the country has has been very explicit about the goal is not just economic growth. We actually work on the building capabilities, building cultures, and knowledge exchange. and most importantly, investing in people. And that's where the translation become an enabler. In this context, the translation is closer to an infrastructure. It's how you move knowledge, how you develop cultural industry, how you participate globally, and you grow local talent that can operate internationally. And it ties the directly to the one of the pillars of the vision that is called the Human Capability Development Program. And the whole idea is developing people at every stage of life, aligning education outcomes with the labor market needs.
Yeah.
So, and also building a future-ready workforce. When you connect translation to that, you start seeing why it's treated strategically. And translation is one of the clearest human capability fields. It combines language and technology and culture, and it's an increasingly specialized domain.
Okay.
And those exactly the kinds of skills a global facing country needs. And what's also interesting in this line of thinking is that I like to gently make a comparison. You mentioned being in the United States and also in Saudi Arabia. We've been seeing a real decline in language enrollments across parts of North America and Europe. In the US, actually, there was a report by the Modern Language Association reported that the enrollments in courses in languages other than English dropped 16% between 2016 and 2021. And I think also in the UK, reports actually have the same thing, highlighted ongoing drops in language degrees and widespread of closure of language degrees at many universities.
That's 6-0, sorry, Amer. 6-0 or 1-6?
1-6.
Oh, sorry, okay.
16.
That's
yes.
fine. That's not quite so worrying.
So, but honestly, if you look at it, a lot of places, in a lot of places, the message students are getting is language languages are optional, or languages are not a growth area. But in Saudi Arabia, the direction feels completely different.
Yeah.
You see increasing visibility. You see institutions putting real weight behind translation, and you see it shows up in a lot of events where students aren't just present there. They are engaged and they learn from the industry leaders. And for me, that's a really key point. When students are the majority in the room, it means translation is being framed as a future, as a profession, as a pathway, and national capability. So if I had to summarize everything down, I would say that Saudi Arabia is actually capitalizing on translation, and it's just not something we do after we produce something. It's something that we build as part of the national capability and the national capacity.
And do you see those services being needed by individuals for organizations or the state-run organizations for internal business purposes, or for businesses in Saudi Arabia that are exporting? Sorry, exporting their services, or is it for businesses that are importing into Saudi Arabia? Is there a trend yet, or is it too early yet to know?
So there are actually a couple of things that are happening in Saudi Arabia right now. One of the first thing is that there was actually a decision to move all the regional headquarters for companies doing their businesses in the MENA region they are required to open an office in Saudi Arabia. That's for the private sectors. And we've seen a lot of global companies like Snapchat opened their headquarters in Saudi Arabia. Google actually opened a new cloud services data center in Dammam. Amazon has been there for quite some time. And more companies are opening their headquarters in Saudi Arabia. So I think the target was 500 companies, and it exceeded that number by a lot.
Yes.
It's now more than 1,500 companies open their regional offices in Riyadh in Saudi Arabia. And this is one area where you see the growth and demand for translation and localization in everything. In legal, in localization, in translation, in all of that. And on the government side, the government is actually or the country is actually hosting Expo 2030 and also hosting the FIFA World Cup 2034.
Oh yes,
and
right.
That's a lot of and honestly, if you just look at the calendar of events in Riyadh this month, you see at least up to 50 conferences happening in Riyadh right now, in all of the domains, and that's a lot of interpreting.
Yes.
That's the area that we rarely talk about, and it's kind of out of my expertise, but I'm all aware of the things that are taking place there. And you get also the gaming sector, which is one of the areas that I'm really interested in. And it's there's a national strategy to make Riyadh as a gaming hub. They actually hosted the esports gaming World Cup, and the prizes for the contests is up to $200 million. And there is a lot of viewerships all over the world watching the contests, and you need a lot of streaming services and a lot of translation, a lot of localization. So the demand is now from Arabic into other languages and from other languages into Arabic. Wow. And we've seen before that English as a dominant language, but now we start to see there is a Arabic into Chinese, Chinese into Arabic translation. And that's one of the new developments in the language industry in Saudi Arabia. And part of it is because the country is also opening up new trades with China, with other countries.
Yes, no, I understand. I'm in huge admiration for any country that's able to put, in order to develop on their strategic development plan for the next generation and the generations after that, insist that organizations have an office in their country. The power behind that, but the ability to stick to it, that's rare. That's rare. I mean, when I think of our Irish culture, and I did mention this before, I'm not allowed to go on too long because somebody inside will tell me to be fast, is the Irish culture. So Ireland qualified for third world status in my lifetime. So in the last sort of 50 years, Ireland qualified. And then we had some very, very talented leaders. Weren't always making the most ethical decisions, I would suggest. However, they were good at bringing their country with them. So I have still some admiration for them. They didn't just pocket all the winnings themselves. And they went into the EU and they ended up bringing phenomenal investment, for, relative to our size, into Ireland. And then that created massive employment. But that did have an impact on our culture, and it did have an impact on our language, and it did have an impact. And it's only now, so it took us, let's say, 30, 40 years to capitalise on that type of investment. Now, again, I am a complete amateur in this. This is just my philosophical observation, so you can't quote me on it. It took us sort of 30 or 40 years to establish ourselves as a strong economic, where we can stand, and now you can see the huge uptake in the Irish language again. You can see, but that's how long it took, for us to not have to subjugate to the people investing into our country. So I have huge admiration. Sorry, we'll get back to the point. That was me. I had to throw that in there. Sorry, Amer.
No, that's completely valid, and you're right. And I've actually used the Ireland situation before in many points because Ireland actually opened up to foreign investments, and they did the tax breaks for
That's right.
foreign companies, and they attracted a lot of companies, Apple, Facebook before it became Meta, and all of that. Actually, kind of the hub for localization in Europe, and so Dribe is actually trying to do something similar with not only the tech companies, but with many industries. But one of the things that is actually taking off is the again one of the balances that we should talk about is the balance between culture and growth, and it's one of the things that sounds like a trade-off. Like you either respect culture or you optimize for business, but in reality, culture is often what makes growth sustainable.
Yes,
exactly.
And the way I think about it is growth is what you measure, like the revenues and all of that. But culture is what makes those numbers possible in the first place.
Yes.
Because culture is basically how people interpret meaning and trust. And if you ignore that, you might still grow for a while, but you grow with friction, and customers don't actually fully connect, and markets actually or marketing doesn't land. And we always see this when or where companies get stuck in is that they treat culture like decoration. And they maybe tweak a few words and add a local image or here and there, but culture is something more than just aesthetics. And you have expectations.
I'm sorry.
Say that again.
I didn't mean to interrupt you. I'm sorry. No, I just had a thought. I was saying, or a tourism, or just an add-on for tourism.
Yes,
we have to be very careful about that.
Definitely. So for me, I think the balance comes from being intentional about where you adapt, about and where you keep things standard. Not everything should be not every piece needs to be at the same level of cultural localization. Some things can be consistent globally. And other things absolutely need local thinking. And that's one of the things that actually when localization becomes strategic, you're not choosing between culture and growth. You're using cultural competence to enable growth.
Yes.
And you're building system that cultural quality doesn't depend on one person state, or doesn't actually be affected by one person. You have a system that guides this kind of growth, and those are actually how you scale respect.
Yeah,
I would agree. It's also, if you like, why did all these big organizations, I know there were obviously big tax breaks and everything offered, but why did all these organizations feel comfortable in coming into tiny little Ireland when there was other English speaking places all around the world? We have a reputation for trust. We have a reputation, we're not going to run off with your money. Whereas there are other phenomenally well established economies around the world, and external investors are afraid of their life to put their money in there. Because of the cultural reputation. Exactly. So cultural reputation matters so much for economic growth, for social growth. So, no, I'm just agreeing with you.
Yeah. And you mentioned, Amer, something earlier on about, interpretation. You said that, of course, interpretation is something that we don't always highlight But actually, interpretation is one of the facets of language management, together with translation, transcreation, etc. And I tend to agree a lot with people who are considering language as an infrastructure, as a vehicle. Because with language, you don't convey only the linguistic aspects, you convey the cultural aspects, you convey the functional aspects. And, because of course, without language management, the best technology could be useless. Because if people cannot use the best technology because it's not available for their experience, they are going to be, they are going to miss the best technology. But I think for me, my experience, it's also very tied to innovation. Because how can you innovate? And AI is a good example of that. AI is innovating in a way. And of course, now we talk about multilingual AI, we talk about AI language, etc. So you see how language plays out in AI. AI would not be AI without language, right? It would be something else. I don't know what, but it would be something probably not so nice as it is now.
Yeah.
So I know you are also exposed and connected to innovation in Saudi Arabia. I would like to get your opinion about the role of language management in the way innovation is growing in Saudi Arabia.
I want to make a point about the language as an infrastructure. So when I say language as an infrastructure, I mean in the same way we talk about roads, electricity, or the internet.
Like a vehicle.
Exactly.
It's a car.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's true. And a lot of organizations still treat language as a wrapper, something you add at the end so you can say that you are global.
Yeah, exactly.
But if you're serious about growth and innovation, language is actually part of the system. And this is what Saudi Arabia actually realized, that you have the language, because innovation isn't real until people can understand it. That's what happened with the AI. Once people actually trust it and adopt it, that's when it's innovative. And you can see this in very practical ways. Like, first, you get the language access.
Yep.
And if the best tools and services or knowledge existed only is in one language, you're not just limiting reach, you're limiting who gets to participate. That's true in all the domains, like in education, healthcare, and all of that. Even in something as simple as career tools.
Yeah.
A lot of language is what turns a capability into something people can actually use. And in many sectors, the difference between close enough and correct is something that is not just cosmetic. And going back to your thing, a poorly localized interface or instructions or anything cause misunderstandings, have a real harm. So language work is part of risk management.
Yes.
And also user protection. And you asked about language management in Saudi Arabia. So when you have a national policy to move language access to all the sectors, and there is a royal decree in Saudi Arabia that actually mandates the translation of documents from English from Arabic into English within a maximum of 6 months, to allow for language access in the country. There is a lot of push for inclusion of languages other than Arabic and English in social services. Like recently, they added Urdu and they added Tagalog in the social services apps and website. So once you have all of that, and you see that the people actually underestimate language itself as a driver of innovation. And once you work across languages, you start seeing how different cultures solve problems, how they name concepts, and what they consider persuasive, what they consider respectful. And with all of that, you see it's a very practical idea. As I mentioned, if you want innovation to travel, you have to build the language layers with the same seriousness you build the engineering layers. Anything that requires innovation, because language is how innovation becomes shared.
It becomes relevant, actually.
Yes,
That's
and adapted.
Yeah, exactly. It's all about being relevant, because innovation without language management would be probably not really innovation. It would be something different, because people, to your point, Amer, people would not would not consider it as innovation, because they would miss a number of things that they could not understand. So I think that's really where language as I don't use language as an infrastructure, but I use language as a vehicle. For me, language is like a car. It brings you from A to B, from B to C, etc. Until, of course, and that's for me the content journey. It starts with creation and it ends with delivery. And language is the vehicle that takes you to every step of the way.
Yes.
So last point here, last question, and then maybe we can see, have we missed anything that you definitely would need to cover? Bruno mentioned to me that you are part of a group, or you're involved in an organisation, the SEA Ventures. I don't know whether do you want to speak about that? Because it sounds like a very interesting innovation.
Talking about innovation, that could be interesting.
Now, if you're not able to share, there's no problem at all. It's fine.
Definitely. Honestly, it's one of the things that I can't share on record, because I signed an NDA. But it's something within the human capability development area. So I'm currently working as a consultant for SEA Ventures company, and it's partnering with the Literary and Publishing and Translation Commission. But that's all I can say for now.
Let's actually, but then let's not.
And I apologize.
No,
for not having more information about that, but because we actually reached out to Bruno before, because we wanted to learn from his experience, and also having the pleasure of having him as part of the project that we're working on, and you will hear about it very soon.
Yeah, I really appreciate your connection that you established, because that's exactly what my job is about, and I like it because it's about connecting, making sure that innovation goes beyond a bubble, that it becomes something real. You mentioned before, it has to be perceived and received by people as something valuable. They have to see some value. If innovation doesn't bring any value, I'm not sure who would like innovation, because it's like my smartphone. This is a very different model. This is a different model than 10 years ago. Okay, there is innovation in it. If it was the same thing as 10 years ago, probably I would say, why should I buy a new smartphone?
Yep. That's true. And similar to last time, before we wrap, we often talk about localization like it's mainly business function.
Yeah.
Something that drives growth, revenues, and all of that. And that's true, but there's also the question that I keep coming back to is, when you are someone who has both the technical skill and the cultural fluency, does your responsibility stay purely business, or does it naturally get bigger?
I love this topic.
Yes, because at some point, you're not just moving words around. You're shaping how the culture is represented, and what gets preserved, what gets simplified, what gets lost, and we see that a lot with AI models nowadays. So, do we, as localization people, have any responsibility beyond delivering projects?
Exactly.
Like, is there a point where the job turns into a kind of cultural stewardship, protecting and documenting and even honoring the cultures we are working with? I don't know if there is a clean line there, and maybe there isn't one. But I think a good question for anyone in this space to think about is, especially as you talk about innovation and ideas, about skills and structures and all of that, is something to take back to your own work and reflect on. And maybe one day we can find that line and divide the what is actually something that we can take as a business and something that is just as a culture.
That to me is the same question in general about social responsibility. I mean, I believe strongly in the butterfly effect. I'm sure you know what that is. That,
Yes,
you know,
definitely.
and I don't know that a lot of people. Sorry, I don't know that. I would like to hope that a lot of people have some sort of sense of professional pride, social pride, business pride, and
Yes.
you know, even trying to make things better if they have families. Anyway, let's not get too. That's actually one of my favorite topics, but I get too distracted by it sometimes. So, Amer, is there anything else that you think we could have asked that we haven't asked, and that you'd like to promote or share? Or
No, I think we've covered everything. And honestly, we could go
I
forever
know
talking about
that's the problem.
all of the interesting topics.
I know.
Thank you, again for having me, and I really appreciate the invitation and the way you run this show. And as I said in the beginning, you actually create a space that's actually important, and honestly, we need more of that. So thank you both.